Speed skaters out there, you come to the right place. This is a video Mitch and I have been looking forward to making. It is your blade guide.
If you don't know where to start when you look at the spectrum of all the blades out there, this is going to be the video for you. We're going to start off with the recreational skates, and we're going to work our way up to the most professional, and from the sprint distance all the way to the longest.
Yeah, and to be fair, it is not easy choosing the right blade, the right bridge, and the right length of blade. So that's what we're here for today. We're going to take you through all of it, and then hopefully you have a pretty good idea where to start. The hard part is that it is still very individual, but we're going to give you some indications, some ideas that hopefully can guide you towards the right choice.
And we get a lot of questions on what the plus means, and we'll dive into that a little bit later in the video as well.
The nice thing is, like, we are sponsored by Viking, but you can look at any video from basically any professional skating competition. You will find that almost every skater out there is skating on the Viking blades. So that narrows it down and makes it a lot easier to choose. But even within Viking, we have a lot of different models. So today we're going to tell you which one you should get.
Okay, let's start with the long distance ones. So if you go to the Viking website, you can see that they have some marathon specific blades. They also have some recreational, outdoor, just in general blades, but then they also have the competitive marathon blades. I'm assuming that they're going to be a little bit more durable. We don't have any here to show, but they're going to be good for the lakes.
Yeah, and also those are still good blades, but again, you will feel it different if you choose. The three we have here is the Sapphire, the Icon, and the Ruby blades. Those are the ones that basically every World Cup skater is using out there. But if you're getting into the sport, or like Mitch said, if you're skating outdoors, just find a good, like Viking has the Eclipse, for example, that comes at less than half the price of these. Right. So that's a really good entry blade for you to try skating out.
And then they move up to the Naganos. You know, this is a blade that's been around for a long time. I feel like it's the blade that made Viking famous in the world of speed skating. And there are still people at World Cups that are on Naganos, one of which is Miho Takagi. She might be on the Icons this season, but up through the last years, her world record in the 1500 is on the Nagano Sprints, and you can still buy those on Viking site.
That is true. Both Miho Takagi, Ted-Jan Blom, and Nils van der Poel have all broken world records on other Viking blades while these ones were on the market.
Right. So it is finding the right blade for you, but we've narrowed it down at least to these three plus, I would say, the Naganos as your options.
So we start out with the Sapphire here.
Yep.
The stiffest blade there is, the one where you can get the most pressure, but also the one that can be the hardest to push.
Yeah. So we generally say that the Sapphires, especially these days, is reserved for the men's shorter distance side. There are some women sprinters that are on Sapphires, but I feel like most have shifted either to the Rubies or to the Icons.
Yeah.
They're just a little bit harder to push. So if you're talking about your start or the openers, it's just a little bit harder to be athletic on versus something that's a little bit softer.
Yeah. A great comparison would be, imagine a bicycle. These would be a very heavy gear. So if you do have the muscle power, if you have the size for it, it's very comfortable, and it is easy, as they will stay where you put them down into the ice, but it will take more muscle power to push them.
Right.
Personally, I put these on and I set my fastest flying lap the very next day, and then I put them on for a 5K, and that was a long 5K. So,
yep.
Use with caution.
But again, it is personal preference. There are some women that are on the Sapphires, and there are some middle to distance skaters on them as well, but generally people have a harder time with the longer distances on the Sapphires. So that shifts us up. We'll go to the Icons next, so the opposite end. And for anything metric style racing, this seems to be the best for the long distance races. Popular, I would say almost every single distance skater is on these bad boys. And a lot of the sprint women are now on Icons, including Yuta Leerdam, who is not the smallest skater out there. She's very powerful. And it seems to work for her to be on the Icons instead of the Sapphires or the Rubies.
Yeah. Yeah, so just a super popular blade. You do feel more in these, so the softer they are, the more you can feel. There's more, almost like a rebounce feel of it. So in that way, it's in a way easier to relax on them, but you won't get the same amount of like natural pressure straight into the ice.
Right. Yeah, I guess a good way to say it is that the icons can help you out a little bit more. If you feel like you can get into the ice easily on your own, then maybe Sapphires is for you, but otherwise icons. Now, if you're a heavier or really strong male, I probably wouldn't do the icons if you're trying to do a 500 or 1,000. Anything longer than that, though, I think these might be the way to go.
Yeah, so if you look at different parameters, the things you would have to take into account, if you're bigger, leaning more towards the Sapphires. If you're a smaller, lighter skater, more towards the icon. If you're a sprinter, more towards the Sapphires. If you're more distance, more towards the icon. And the more power you want to put in, Sapphires, the more feel you want, icons.
Right. It also doesn't mean that you're stuck with either one. I suggest that you try both sides and see which feels more coordinated for you. Yeah. Changing our bike gear into the middle there, we have the Rubies. These are the newest in the lineup. You also see, we'll talk about the bridge. The bridge has got some holes in it. And it seems like people are really enjoying at least the bridge part if they're not liking the blade. But these are your middle of the road, and it seems like 1,500, 3K. There's some 5K skaters on the Rubies that wanted a little bit more stiffness than the icons. A lot of the guys these days are going 28s in their 5Ks, which is pretty fast lap time. So a little bit more stiffness might be helpful.
And also, skating is a brutal sport in the way that there are several distances where you go basically all out, and even when it's a successful race, you die throughout the race and go slower and slower. So you want the ability to put in all your power, but also some sort of feel and some ability to keep that rhythm later on. And that's where the Ruby is the perfect choice for you.
It seems like this might be kind of in between what we were saying before. If you're a smaller sprint male, maybe the Rubies are for you. I think there's a wider range on the Ruby, what kind of skater you could be.
And then the Ruby has the new Viking bridge here that is both lighter and also has more up-down power transfer. So it's really fancy here. You kind of gives itself, it's lighter because there's a bunch of holes in it. But the idea is that it has some flex sideways, but the pressure that you put from boot into ice, it will not be limited in that way. So
and
that's the both ones.
What I was alluding to before is that people are using the new Ruby bridge with the Sapphires because that's like the halfway in between step. If you just want a little bit more feel on the Sapphires, you could try using that Ruby bridge, but still keeping the Sapphire blade. We haven't seen anybody try the icons with the Ruby bridge or any of the other combinations yet, but might be worth tinkering with.
Yeah, and then there are other ways where, like we said, it's very individual, but there are also other ways where you can find more or less pressure depending on what you like. Say if you change the rock off the blade. So that's one thing. We look at X size, we look at X stiffness, but then if you're only touching the ice from here to here, it'll be a lot easier changing direction and picking up the rhythm, whereas if you have a larger amount of blade in the ice, you won't be able to steer, you won't be able to push as fast off.
Correct. We might have to do rock and bend in another video because that's a whole new can of worms to go to open. But it does seem like the Rubies are currently still harder to get your hands on, but they're starting to produce more and more of them. And we've seen some good skaters out there starting to use these Rubies. Now, one of the more confusing parts of coming up with your blade choice is the actual size of the bridge and the size of the blade. A lot of people ask us what the plus means, and this is us trying to explain what that actually does for you. So, for example, if you have a 38-39 shoe or bridge size that you're using, the standard size blade that comes with is a 16. If you want let's say you have a really small foot, but you got the power for a 16-inch blade, you would have a plus. So if you had the 36-37 bridge, but you want 16-inch blades, that you would get the 16-inch plus.
So think of it
they're
as
not longer.
Yeah, the plus is that the blade itself is oversized compared to the bridge.
Compared to the bridge.
Yeah.
Or undersized compared to the bridge. Which is also confusing. So through the spectrum, there's 15.5s. The natural size for 15.5 inch blades is a 36-37. 38-39 is 16s. 16.5s is the 40-41. 17s is 42-43, and so on.
Yeah.
think it only goes up to 17.5s. 18s are more of a custom size blade for very large individuals who are very strong. So
and then for each, you will still have a little bit of space to move forward, backwards. It could still mount. You're just extremely limited on how much you can move it backwards and forward. So ideally, you would get the size that fits, or if you want a longer blade than what fits your shoe, then you get a plus.
And I think the only possible drawback is if somehow a very strong and fast man had really tiny feet, it could cause problems because they can only size up so far. You can't go those 2 sizes larger, but I don't think that there's really been a lot of examples where that's an issue.
Yeah.
That's your rundown of the blade sizes. Hopefully that made sense. It is confusing.
If for some reason this did not help you choose the right blade or length of blade, let us know in the comment section below and we will make sure to give you an answer. And if you have already gotten your hands on the right blade, you don't know how to sharpen it, then check out the GSN channel, because Mitch here made a great video on how to sharpen.
And we will, again, try to cover any of the rocking and bending questions without going into extreme detail, because it is a bit of an art along with it. But yeah, any other questions, please let us know. That's it for us here at the GSN.
Thanks for watching. Have fun on your skates and subscribe. So we'll see you for the next video.